Hello, I'm Jim Cassetta, the local history librarian at the Pearl River Public Library. I'm also a local author. This is Pearl River Public Library at home, and I hope you're all practicing social distancing, making me proud. Today we're going to talk about the railroad. And the railroad was the most important thing to happen to Pearl River since the Tappan Zee Bridge was put in 1953. The railroad stopped at Hackensack, New Jersey, and it was under the authority of the New York and New Jersey Railroad. This was a privately owned railroad whose president was John Demarest. Now, Demarest had a summer villa on Washington Avenue and William Street. That's still there today. It's an apartment house. And his wife was instrumental in naming Pearl River. Demarest was being annoyed by town founder Julius Bronsdorf that on the trains as they came up, the conductors were shouting out, "Next stop, Muddy Brook." Well, he felt he couldn't sell lots in Muddy Brook, as the locals called it. So he annoyed John Demarest, and John Demarest complained to his wife, and she said, "Why not name it Pearl River?" And that's how the town got its name. In 1870, when the rail line reached Pearl River, Julius Bronsdorf applied for a postmaster spot and a post office designation, which he received in 1872. Most people commuted to Jersey City, then they took ferries over to New York City, and that's how the rail was used. The rail line was a real shot in the arm for the town. It was like a clogged artery getting a stent. The flow of business came here, and the businesses started to come in. There were hotels and boarding houses and stores, and that's how the nucleus of the town formed. When Bronsdorf bought his original 150 acres, he had it cleared by Philip Beckerly of Beckerly lumber fame. The contract was only to cut down the trees, and Beckerly was free to do what he wanted with the lumber. So what he did was to sell it to the railroad coming up as railroad ties and fuel for the engines. The first accident in the railroad in Pearl River was in 1893 or 4, where a deaf man named Culbert collapsed on the tracks. He had been purchasing umbrellas from the Herring Umbrella Factory on top of the Serve General Store. In the 1890s, umbrellas were a way for deaf mutes to earn a living by selling the umbrellas to commuters in these villages near the stations. Because commuters on inclement weather days always needed an umbrella, and they could get them from these men. Every town had one. That was their jurisdiction. Culbert collapsed on the railroad tracks, and unable to hear the train coming, was run over. And that was the first recorded accident with the train in town. After that, on June 25th of 1907, the trains had been going up and down taking freight between Jersey City as far as Spring Valley, New York. And what happened on June 25th, that early morning, was the train's air brake failed and it rolled back all the way to Pearl River. The train had picked up tremendous speed and had crashed just south of Jefferson Avenue. And when it went over, the oats and the gravel that was being carried just went all over the place. The boxcars were mangled. And it took 2 days to get the boxcars and clear the line, to get them off the wreckage, off of the rails. Joe Fisher, seeing an opportunity, owning the livery stable, purchased for pennies on the dollar the oats that had spilled. Unfortunately, they were filled with wood splinters and small aggregate gravel. Unfortunately, he fed the horses this, and about a dozen or so died. They had to be put to sleep, which was very unfortunate. The wreck itself didn't claim any lives, but the firemen rode most of the trip from Spring Valley down to Pearl River, hanging by an outside rail on the engine. The engineer and the conductors were all safe. There's a picture of two of the wreckage being removed, and two boys, Oscar Iserman and Arthur Oakley, who were later businessmen in town, were standing there and had their pictures taken by Peter Collignon. He was one of our first photographers who traveled in a horse and wagon and took and developed pictures. I'm going to post that picture in on social media because I have a copy of it which I found in the old papers. So the railroad fortunes rise and fell. The New Jersey and New York Railroad went bankrupt. The Erie purchased it, and it's been a commuter line ever since, although during World War II there was a lot of shipment of war materials and personnel. On June 7th, 1944, there were 11 boxcars were destroyed along with 7 buildings in downtown Pearl River due to a fire caused by a cigarette in animal bedding that was going to Lederle Laboratories. Without the railroad in this town, we still would have been a veritable wilderness of farmers. And Julius Bronsdorf, in his foresight, gave that easement to the railroad so that he could have his factory built, his town planned, and we can know Pearl River as the town we know today. Thank you, and keep on social distancing.